Oh, we're live. Michael, how are you doing? Welcome to the show. How's everybody doing? Live. Today's going to be our off-the-chart holiday show. We got dogs everywhere, things running around. There's animals and pets.
Those are elves that look like dogs.
Right there. They're elves. That's a good one, Mike. That's a good one. So those are the new family participants. They're running wild across the
Wiggy Elf and Biggie Elf.
Yes. How you doing, Michael? Great to see you.
Doing great, Jack. How are you?
Happy December 14th, 2022. Hope everybody's doing great. Hope you are in the holiday spirit, prepared to enjoy the end of the year and all the blessings we enjoy living in this wonderful country. So hope everybody's
happy. Today is the official day that you can start saying to people, hey, see you next year. Hey, see you next year. Hey.
Meetings. People are scheduling meetings. We're going to meet again next year. You know what I mean? That's what people are starting that process. Hey, so any holiday thing? Well, you want to introduce yourself, Mike? Tell people who you are.
Mike Denker. I am the futurist. I am the Renaissance futurist. I bring the best of the past into the future. And I think we're doing that with Manage from Home, Jack. I think that's right where we're sitting right now.
Amen. Amen. My name is Jack Sani. Great to meet you all. Thanks for coming to the show. We have, those who've been following us, we have really spent this last month or two really focused on this issue of managing from home. And what does that really mean for folks? And you're like, well, that's not the right acronym. Well, everyone talks about work from home, right? That's the topic that's talked about all the time and all the iterations of it, all the Great Recession and the quiet quitting and all those things. And then what's happened now, today's topic is really as folks and companies have become used to that work from home. Well, the people have, and the companies have not, as they've started to deal with the repercussions of, we sent our people home. And maybe you were able to set up their infrastructure at their house, but now you're dealing with some of the metrics are lower and the people maybe aren't working as hard. And so there's a lot of buzz around about, hey, they're not. And so this is SHRM, right? The HR professional society, these are all in the last week, is remote work to blame for lower productivity? A lot of buzz about this. So it's so funny. We sent people home to work from home and then we didn't train anybody. Right? We didn't train them. We didn't talk about how to do it or anything. And, all this stuff, then it kind of leads to this perception from bosses, right? We are less productive. We're less productive when we're at home. I love this headline. This is Forbes this week as well. At least that's what their bosses think, right? That's the buzz around town, right, Mike?
It's that none of us can shake it. It's that factory mentality. We don't even realize we have a factory mentality, but the way we were raised to show up to work on time at a certain time so that we can get a day's work in by a certain time and everything opens and closes at the same time, break times, lunch time. That's all assembly line thinking. And we don't live in very few of us working in an assembly line today. A lot of folks are, and we're thankful they are because they make all the stuff that we seem to use way too much of these days. But the rest of us are, especially professionals, aren't working on an assembly line. We're out there, in the information age where we're using data and analytics and making decisions and selling things and moving things and making marketing and operations. And in doing all that, we have to make sure that we adapt to the way things are now. And the best employees out there aren't looking to come back to the office. And so
that's really the rub, right? A lot of the companies that were forced because of COVID to go work from home. I think companies did a really good job spending a lot of time working on the infrastructure of work from home. Hey, do you have internet at your house? What's the computer you need? Do you have the right lighting, desk, chair? I think there were a lot of cycles. What I saw of really how do you set up your home office, right? So God bless. I think companies did a pretty good job of that, right? Whatever infrastructure you needed at your home to keep the world moving, I think they did a great job of that. A very good job. Now, though, that people are settled, the next repercussion of that is, can we operate well in this work from home environment? Do we know what to expect? That's what really today's show is about. The metrics. A lot of folks, their metrics and productivity are much, much, much lower. And it's why is that? In the old school mentality is, let's go back to the office. Let's just go back. And really, no one wants to do that. Right?
Well, I think you're right, Jack. And the companies said, what do we need to do for our employees that are physically working in a different environment? And for some reason, who knows why, they didn't say our managers are going to have to manage differently with this new environment. Yeah. And they made the assumption that management is management, whether they're in the office or working from home. And there are some things in the office that aren't important in the work from home environment. And there are some things in the work from home environment that were never even thought of in the office.
Yeah.
And so there hasn't been a transition for management to be more effective in the work from home environment. And so therefore, management's not getting the results we want. We have to go back to the last time we knew in history management worked, right, was pre-COVID. And so we have to go back there. And what did that mean? Well, that's when it worked. So people were working in the office. But the thing that we're all forgetting is that the workforce was trending towards working from home prior to COVID. But COVID was the hurricane. I mean, it was the catastrophic event which became the compelling event that made work from home more than average, right? It moved it from about one in 4 to 3 out of 4. And now we're adapting to figure out what is the new environment going to look like. Is it going to go back to 1 out of 4 trending towards a third, or is it going to stay at a half, or is it going to stay above a half? And while we're figuring all that out, no matter what, we're probably going to end up with half our folks work from home. And that means we need to have half our managers have to have a skill set developed to be able in a system that's designed to help them work and manage from home.
It's sad state of affairs when you think in 2022. I think all of us feel like, oh, we're the most enlightened, all the technology, we are the most progressive, we are the most open, right? And literally, as productivity and some of the numbers are down for a lot of companies, right? I mentioned this on my LinkedIn. I get a call probably at least twice a week about somebody going, oh, since work from home, all our productivity is down, our metrics are down. What should we do? And it's like, okay, like besides going back to the office, which is what everyone, this enlightened technology savvy, that's like the first thing people go to. As you just said, let's go back to what we were doing, not fully thinking that part out of, oh my gosh, what are the repercussions of that? Who's going to resign? Does that really make it better? Our cost structure goes back up. We've invested all this time in this remote work process. And almost nobody, as Mike and I have researched it and delved into it, no one's talking about what are the new frameworks to manage from home? What are the new paradigms? What are the training modules? What's valued? And that there's literally been almost no time or resources put into that aspect of this kind of decrease we've seen in productivity over the last kind of 12 months.
And what the number one tool of a manager, right, is to have a goal to work towards, right? Because what is a manager going to do if he doesn't have a goal to work towards? Got to have a goal to work towards, and then use your management skills to do whatever's necessary to get your people to do more than they would have done without you, right? To get more production out of your team. That's what managers do. That's what managers did in the factory. That's what they did at IBM. That's what they're going to be doing at Microsoft tomorrow. And they're going to be doing it wherever we're working. They're going to be trying to do that. But in the manage from home, work from home environment, we may have lost sight of that. We may have lost sight of what's the manager's role in a virtual environment. It's still to get maximum output from their team.
Yeah. And I think what people forget or gets lost, or we just take for granted, sometimes we don't see the forest for the trees, is there's actually more time available to people. And again, I posted about that this week. Like if we just pure hours, old school before COVID, right? well, let's just say it's 45-minute commute in, 45-minute commute home. Then at lunchtime, if you're super busy, you didn't pack your lunch, you go out, you get lunch or you go eat, then coming back, the breaks you take. Then if, goodness gracious, if you have a doctor's appointment or a family emergency or pick up the kids, I mean, there's so many things you weaved into your pre-COVID work world that was super hectic, right? And theoretically, now just theoretically, there should be more time available to everybody in the workplace. Oh, just the commute alone, just say it's an hour to 2 hours new time that was freed up with the work from home, not to mention the meal part, the child care, the ability to move your schedule around and go to appointments. The allotted amount of time to get things done is actually bigger, but somehow a lot of people, a majority, almost all companies decided, nope, we're actually going to ask less of our staff. They're at home now. They went through COVID. Lots going on. We're going to accept 80%. The metrics, all the calls, the coding, the ROI, the amount of campaigns we're going to do, we're going to accept 80% or 60%. And there was like, well, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Maybe in the emergency of the moment, it felt right. But now we're well removed from the life-threatening part of COVID. And folks have not readjusted to say, oh, we now have this time. So then now the bosses, now the bosses are saying, you know what? You should get back, which is a lose-lose for everyone involved, right?
It really is. If you think about all the benefits of working from home, the autonomy, flexibility, the work-life balance, people don't remember, it's hard to focus at the office sometimes, right? It's hard to get to work for 25 minutes without an interruption. You can do that in your home office. And the other sad reaction of, the knee jerk, it hasn't been a well thought out reaction, but the other reaction is, well, if we're not getting the production we want from home, we need to have more virtual meetings, right? More virtual meetings, that'll increase productivity. And I don't know how it sounds counterintuitive when you say that out loud. And so
if I'm just watching you in your face more, you'll get more done. It's like,
it's not going to, there are tools to use. There's a way to team up. There's ways to inspire each other. There's way for colleagues to work together without management's engagement. But manager has to facilitate. Manager has to say, these are the resources we need. Manager has to say, I see an opportunity. I need to make that connection, and then I need to facilitate the growth and make it all moving. A lot of great things. Management should be more exciting than it's been in decades, if not century. And the reason being is there's just so much opportunity to adapt and mold in a much more flexible environment.
But I think a lot of times people don't want to do that, right? That no one does. I want to change, right? If you had a model that worked in the office, hey, management are working around. Here's my one-on-one schedule. We have the TVs out, and shows what everyone's productivity is, and we have the metrics, and there's our team meeting, and the whiteboard shows it, and you have all of your cultural paraphernalia when you walk in, the paintings and the motivational signs. Like, if all that worked for you, most people, unless they're really forced, which is what's happening right now, forced to change and learn, they don't want to do it. You know what I mean? And that's what this new paradigm to try to manage your people from home, it literally is, I don't want to say it's totally different, but it is 70 to 60 to 70% different, completely different than everything you did when you were managing in a office or your organization or saw people face to face. It's notably different, and little to no training is being done on that part of it.
And that's just it, Jack. Here's the good news. It's not drastic change. Management from home is not conceptually different than management in the office. The things that you need to accomplish, you need to establish goals. You need to figure out what it takes to get those goals accomplished. You need to align the resources. Then you need to trust your people to go to work. And then you need to check their work. And then you need to see where you're at systematically over a period of time of how's progress going, make adjustments. Plan, do, check, adjust worked in the office. Plan, do, check, adjust works out in the field. It works from home. But you have to adapt, right? That's the part we missed. It's not exactly the same. And so when you're in a virtual world, you just got to do things a little bit maybe a lot bit. It could be a lot bit, but it's different, right? It doesn't what we think management does and how management works and the skills it takes. Similar, adapted, right?
Right.
Environment.
I think it's a great point. The end goal is the same. How do we make everyone more productive? Right. And I just think the mechanism by how that happens is markedly different. Right. And so let's just walk through a couple things. A lot of this is communication based. Right.
Yeah.
And so, the first one is sometimes, the goals, metrics, standards, sometimes, maybe you heard them while you were onboarded, they were in your employee manual, they were in your maybe first day or two. But rarely in the old days where people talked about it every day, because the team, the culture, your coworkers, the company knew it. It was like, hey, that's the flavor of, hey, we're all doing this. I see everyone doing that. I see you on the phone. I see you coding. I see what's happening, right? I heard about it a little bit, but I watched the action. And when everyone's on the phone, everyone's down programming or finance is closing the stuff, I see it. All that's gone today. And it's so important to make sure the goals we set are clear and obvious and spoken about regularly over and over and over on your video calls, because the infrastructure support of that, which happened in the old days, is gone, right?
It's so great. I love the football field, right? Because just there's a white line on that image, and I see the football and a white line. I assume that's the goal line, right?
Yeah.
I assume that's the goal line. Now, everybody on the field, that goal line is part of their goal. Everybody that's on the field, the coaches, the defensive coaches, offensive coaches, all the offensive players, all the defensive players, even the special teams, their goal is to, around that line, their number one objective in the game today is either get our team to that goal over that line, or it's to keep the other team from getting to that line, their goal line. That's it. That's our whole job today. Well, that's clear and obvious. What a great objective.
Yeah.
In that image, we saw a finish line for a race. What's your goal today? To get to that line quicker than anybody around me. What's your goal? That's it. That's the whole goal today. Get to that line faster than anybody else. We saw a dartboard, but then we also saw the bar chart graph. Like, here's our goal. We're going to hit to 17%. And you can't visualize 17%. It's not a big white line to keep everybody out or get everybody over. It's not a spot on a dartboard. It's 17%. I mean, I went through years of schooling, and I don't know what 17% looks like in the office or virtually. Like, what does that look like? And so we've got to make the goal for the team and the individuals that make up the team clear and obvious. You need to accomplish 7 of these today. You need to accomplish 3 of these this week. You got to get 1 of these done every month. 1 of what? That's what all of our jobs look like. But it has to be clear. It can't be, well, we feel pretty good if you're somewhere between 7 and 9 by the end of Thursday. Like, no. Tell me what the win looks like, because you can't kind of score a touchdown. You can score a touchdown or score a field goal, but they're very different, and they end up in changing the way the outcome of the game. We've got to look at work and say, I've got to tell you, this is what the win is. Clear language, simple language, minimum syllables, and I'm not dumbing down to anyone. It has to be clear and understandable across the whole team, so that there's no vagueness and there's no misunderstanding about what we're trying to accomplish.
But I think I think the big change, though, in the old days, there was a lot of infrastructure that helped support that. If you were doing a fundraising drive, or if you're doing sales, you'd have the chart, or you'd have people's who's at quota, you'd have pictures. There's, if you've ever been in that environment, or in a tech office, there's always like, hey, here's our next release date. How many days till the next release? There's a lot of things infrastructure-wise that help support the messaging. And that is one of the biggest things that's lost. All the other messaging as you walk down a hall, almost subliminal, that happens, is all gone. It's not in your house, right? You're not hanging your company logo in your house, most likely. And you certainly don't have the sales goal or the next release date posted on, letters that are 3 foot high across the thing. And so a lot of that's missing. And so folks have this thing when they communicate. Oh, I told him last week. And I think when you were talking, it's like one of the biggest parts of it is having to repeat it constantly. and finding ways to visualize. Everyone learns different. Like you got to be able to say, this is what the goals are. These are our metrics. This is productivity. Here's our standards all the time, both verbally. If you find visuals, send it out. You have to keep reinforcing it because it gets lost. In the old days, for 8 hours, you were bombarded by it subliminally. And now at your house, you have your 1 hour, maybe 2 hours a day on video. And then you go back to your home and all you see is your nice pictures of seashells or pictures of ski resorts or whatever you have around your house, not in all supportive of what the company goals are.
You know, I think as a society, one of the things that we ask ourselves every single day is, what's the best meme for this? Right? We do. Everybody asks themselves at some point every single day. Somebody goes, "I wonder what the best meme is for this. I'd love to get a meme up for that. I want to put a meme up for that." And some people put memes up for everything, and some people are about once or twice a week memer. But we ask that question. What, as managers, we need to ask that same question. What can I be? What's the best visual cue that I could give them right now to tell them about, to set the tone for what's going on, to give them advice, to give them a read. And the other thing I think, Jack, is that we have dashboards. Almost all of us working virtually have some form of a dashboard in front of us during the day. At the office, that can be taken for granted. In a virtual environment, that has to be optimized.
Yes.
That has to be considered. There has to be a portion of that is just, it has to be optimized for the visual cues that, like you said, they're not on the refrigerator. They're not in the work from home environment. That dashboard is my virtual visual cue opportunity. And it's underutilized, and I think it needs to be optimized.
Well, I think you got to share it. I think in the old days in the office, the dashboard, which was in your CRM or whatever your management system is, you literally, people see it and it's clicked on and maybe it's put on a TV or whatever. And now manager from home, folks just assume other people are looking at it, but it really is up to you as a manager from home to like share it, promote it, put it in all different ways, put it behind you as a visual, like constantly. We have to get this done where folks clearly know what it is constantly, way more than once. Maybe in the old days, you could say it once a week, maybe once a month. You have to do it daily, multiple times, so everyone's aligned and everyone knows what we're doing. And it is the same or more, not less, the same or more, right? That's step one, right? And then it's this part, right? You want to go through this? Go ahead.
Well, so many times there's nothing more frustrating that you put in a gargantuan effort on a misunderstood project. And at the end of the day, you think you're delivering your best work that you've done in a long time. And then somebody says to you, great work. It's not the right work. That is not what we needed. We needed something completely different. And there's nothing more disheartening for the employee and nothing more disappointing for the manager that thought they were about to get a deliverable. It went from an A+ in your mind to an F in their mind. And that has to be avoided. That can't keep happening on a team if you're going to try to get the best out of that team. And so you've got to make sure, if you're making great strides, that you're making great strides towards the right goal, the agreed upon goal, the appropriate goal that's going to move the team forward. Otherwise, misunderstood goals lead to just disappointment and frustration.
Yeah, I literally, when I think about this really comes back to, in the HR world, no one, old school HR, hey, once a year, your annual evaluation, and new school HR is constant, or maybe once a quarter, blah, blah, blah. But really, when you talk about this, it's obvious a lot of times to the managers, executive team, that what's happening, right? But the employees sometimes sit at home and they're like, yeah, I think, like you said, things are going well. I'm doing good. And what they lack is the other benchmarks. Because in the office, you see, oh, Johnny's on the phone all day. Susan's out messing around. What's the norm around here? And all you have at your house is your norm, right? Yeah. Of whatever your norm is. And so this part of it to me is the employee being very forward all the time, asking, hey, am I on track? Is this what you expect? Is my deliverable, are my deliverables, received well? Because there's not many managers in the world that want to give negative feedback, right? I mean, that's one of those quiet little secrets. Everyone thinks like, Trump, you're fired. Like very few. I've talked to managers like, I can't do it. I can't fire so-and-so. I don't even want to have a a productivity conversation with somebody. Like some managers are great with the good stuff. They're not great at delivering kind of bad or developmental news. And so just this to me is the employee making sure what you're doing regularly and checking in constantly, because people, human beings, we're not wired to, most people, there are a few that love it, but most people are not wired to say, this is not going well. We think you're not doing well. We think you're messing around at home. You're not very productive. This is not why we hired you. And so this part of it is really also making sure that the employee, you are aggressive and check in. No matter where you are in the organization, are you meeting standards? Because what's happening right now, we went through all the things. We went the Great Recession, then quiet quitting, and now there's a lot of reduction in forces taking place. If you check Google, a lot of companies are now de-scoping because they feel like they're not getting the productivity, and it's like having that happen suddenly can be unnerving. And so everyone needs to check in. Are we doing the right things? Are you getting what you need? Am I performing the way you want me to? You have to be very specific, not assume, oh, I'll get my review next year.
It's interesting, Jack, so many of us, you're spot on when you say that we think about these things as negative conversations. We don't want to have negative conversations, but these conversations, they're not negative, they're game changing. These are the critical conversations for a successful organization, for a successful team. If you just say everything Pollyanna, it's Pollyanna off the cliff, right? And then what just happened? Why am I no longer employed? Well,
Pollyanna off the cliff. That was good.
It's like it can happen any given time, and we need to be talking about. I mean, one of the things we developed for management from home is the GRACE method, and we'll share that in another episode. But these critical, when you have a methodology to help you to guide you through a critical, important conversation, in the back of your mind, the little kid in you saying, "This is negative. That's not negative. It's critical." And as a professional manager, these are skills that have to be in your tool bag. Yeah. You can't go next level as a manager in the office or from home if you don't know how to handle critical conversations with your teammates. You've got to be able to do that. We give you the skills to do that in our system. And I think that it's so important that it's grace, right? We develop a way to give grace instead of negativity so that we can guide you and help you improve. Because if somebody, as fans from the outside, we watch people perform every week, right? We watch people as fans perform. And when somebody performs poorly 2 or 3 times in a row, we expect a manager of some kind, whether it's a coach, assistant coach, trainer, somebody, to talk to that employee and say, your performance is not up to snuff. Our fans are going crazy. They're booing us, right? And so we don't have that in business, but we all as humans have an expectation that when somebody is performing poorly, that somebody is going to come and help them improve their performance. That just sounds so normal, yet somehow it gets in the back of our mind in self-talk that it's negative.
I think the way I always think about it is just being honest. Like no one wants to be taken aback, and the ability to, with your manager or with your coach, to have an honest conversation. Like, hey, why is it? I don't agree. Like, why do you perceive it that way? Can be critical, as you mentioned, can be life-changing, the honesty part. And a lot of people are not very good at that, but it's so important. Again, just to recap, it's like, hey, clear and obvious, over and over. What are the goals? Where are we trying to get done? Not lowering the standard, reinforcing it all the time virtually. How do you do that? Checking in. Hey, are we measuring now? Typically, again, on the management side, they're always doing that. Executives are running reports, and are we there and all that stuff. Like, it's critical for the employee to also check in and have these brutally honest conversations, right? And then this last part, right? The kind of this visual thing. So, Mike, you want to jump into that?
Well, I think it's so important that of all we have 5 senses, but if we read about something, we hear about a dog barking, that's all great. But when we see a dog barking, we engage. We know, oh, I got to make a move. We have 40% of our brain is tied up in visual intakes, whereas that leaves 60% of our brain to handle the other 80% of our senses. So 20% of our senses are visual, uses 40% of our brain power. That's how powerful it is. It's twice as powerful as any of our other senses because it's taking it in, has a different way of processing, and it impacts us. So in the virtual world, we talked about this with the dashboard. You've got to think, you've got to stop and go, as a manager, how can I help my team visualize the goals? How can I help them visualize our progress? And how can I help them visualize obstacles, pitfalls, better skills, better training? It's got to be visual in order to make it the most effective way of carrying that message.
100%. Listen, if you like, one of the things we fall victim to in the virtual world is all the ways to communicate between Slack and text and video conferences and all the things we have now to kind of automate it. And I think most people really rely on I'll just present, I'll just talk to them, I'll just tell them, right, over and over in this same forum, in the boxes. Mike always talks, we're all in our box, right? And in the old days, PowerPoint got used to death, probably overly used. People hated it. And today, probably less so, right? Folks are just like, oh, let me just pop on, I'll tell them. And it's like, again, we're used to all of our senses reinforcing what the norm is and what we're trying to get to and what am I a part of culturally. And like one of the reasons productivity is down is we just assume, oh, we told them last week, we told them, and we lack all of these other ways to support and kind of reinforce what we want to get done. And so the visual piece is so important because that, again, there's some of it happens subliminally when you see the sign on the wall, when you see the chart, when you see the sales, the thermometer piece, typically in a fundraising campaign, right? Oh, here it is visually. And we really lack 80% of that is gone now, unless you're very intentional about your video meetings, about the time you have with people. Even if they're one-on-ones, you should find visuals to help because no one wants to listen to you speak for an hour. I don't care how engaging you are.
Jack, you're right. And, there's metrics, right? There are measurements, there are numbers that each of us know and each of our teams, whatever our team does, whether it's sales or manufacturing or delivery or creation, there's always metrics that indicate that we're doing well, right? They're in the metrics. There's a goal. There's our progress to date. Here's where we're at. And visually, that has the strongest impact over hearing it, or you've got to see it. And so we get emails that are very effective from other people that tell us this is where we stand. This is how we're doing. Hey, end of the year. I mean, I get my emails blowing up this time of the year with, don't forget to give us the end of the year. When you're end of year giving, you don't forget us.
Oh, yeah.
But what do they send? The most effective one says, here's where we're at. Here's where we want to get to, right? We're here. We want to get here. Oh, let's fill the gap. Let's get to work, right? Let's get to work. And so it's so important that we see that and verbalize it and verbally make the connection to everything you're doing every single day. And, there's more to it than just putting the picture up. You got to put the picture up and then reinforce it with the words and with your speaking and with your text and your emails and your Slack. But the visual, don't lose sight, little pun there, don't lose sight of the power of the visual. You've got to incorporate that into your management from home.
I was just trying to I literally, we started the year doing goal setting. And I literally, when I talk to my team about goals and my own personally, I play this Les Brown video all the time. And Les Brown, motivational speaker, he says, it's not that people set their goals too high and miss them. It's that they set them too low and achieve them. Right. And so I love that when he presents that. I love it. And I think that's really what happened with work from home. I think that's the best summary. I was trying to find the meme for it right now. I couldn't find it really quick, but I was going to pop it up on the screen. But it's like
Amy Brown's little boy, Les Brown. Love that guy.
I mean, it's such a great thing to be like. That's what we all did. We were like, oh, we're in chaos of COVID, so we were closed. So if we just work from home and get 70% done, we're happy. Well, what we really did subliminally is set that as the new norm. It's really bad. We were all stopped, the first couple of weeks back in March 2020. Folks were like, oh my gosh, we're all shut down. Then it went on to April and May and June. And we're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Restaurants started to put up the plexiglass, right? We're like, we're going to have to find a way. So that's what we started to do. America, find a way. So then companies started to be like, all right, now we're at least back up. So let's just get anything. Anything's better than zero. And really that's what happened. We were at zero. And people were like, okay, we got something that's better. And now what happened, instead of getting back to where we were, we've accepted this subliminally or purposely. We have now accepted, oh, we're going to be at 80% of what we were. And that's what's happening right now. That's the battle companies are having because they're not over communicating. They're not reinforcing what we're trying to get done. And a lot of companies, because they can't figure it out, are saying, go back to the office. Right.
Jack, and I think what we need to talk about in an upcoming show is some of the companies got really good results when pandemic first happened. They went home and they experienced what we're saying can happen. But what happened was people just started working 12, 13, 14 hours a day because they had no boundaries. The management from home failed to set it up in sustainable work habits, right?
Yep.
Because if you don't set up the boundaries of working from home, then all of a sudden you're just working all the time. Your work-life balance you have none, because no matter what you're doing, the phone is available, the screen is up, and you're just kind of blending your life into work. And then what happens is, even though that had a spurt of really good results, like wow, and managers don't generally complain about, my people are working 14 hours a day. This is terrible. That's not what they say. They go, this is great. We're getting productivity we're looking for. But then they burn out.
Yep.
And when everybody burned out, if you're sitting here a year after working from home started, and you're saying, we're not getting there, we got such great results for a little while, it's the burnout piece, and we need to address that as well. You need to make sure from the management perspective, your people are working hard to make a really good output and effectively, but you also have to protect them from burnout so that they can keep working, doing great things for the long haul. Otherwise, you're not going to have you're going to have an early season success, and you're not going to have a winning season as a result, right? So
I was talking about that last week. Like, when's your start time? When's your end time? And so, it's totally fair. I think folks got to one of those two issues, which is where that all, to my mind, led to the quiet quitting and the great resignation, because it's like, I'm done. We were just freaked out. Pandemic freaked us out. Zero. Then we're like, oh, I'll just move up and I'll get 50% done. Then I went all in, and then folks are like, I'm burnt. So it is literally, as we wrap, literally you as the manager being clear, obvious all of the time, continually reinforcing in any way you can to make sure it's aligned. Because again, you got to always remember, they're sitting in their living room with no reinforcement. That's it, right?
Yep.
And checking all the time, both you checking in and really empowering your workforce to check in with you, and empowering your workforce to check in with their manager and their team, having sometimes uncomfortable, but just really honest conversations. Because maybe it is an infrastructure thing. I would work harder, but my child gets home 3:00. We don't have daycare right now. Those are real things. Talking about it, being like, hey, you seem to fall off the map at 3:30 every day. Well, here's why, blah, 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 right? And then finding the right visuals and reinforcement process along the way so that folks feel it and sense it, because no one wants to listen to anybody speak hour upon hour, particularly over the next year, ad nauseum, 2 hours a day. If your interaction for most people is limited to just a small group of people, it can be very challenging. And so being creative, which we all were back in the PowerPoint all the time days, right? And being more creative and intentional of supporting and reinforcing the messaging that we want our sales force, our team, our engineers, our finance folks, all our company to be following.
Well done and well wrapped.
Amen. Great. So remember, listen, we're trying to make this process, the manage from home process, better, as no one is talking about it. It is the number one thing companies are struggling with. Like, how do I manage from home? And so that's where we're working through on this show, is the framework to help you do that. So that's really today, is don't accept lower metrics, really setting them, and then again, reinforcing them constantly. Amen. Any last words on the topic, Mike?
I was just thinking, Jack, that a lot of people, a little bit of pushback sometimes when I say that management from home is the biggest challenge we're facing. Oh, but what about the recession that's coming? Well, management from home is the most effective can be the most cost-effective way to run your workforce.
Oh, yes.
You figure out how to manage it, you'll be more recession-proof than ever before. So it's, making the move back to the office is going to be costly. It's going to cause attrition. It's going to cause rent. You got to pay for rent, liability insurance, all those things that you were able to minimize. Now you're going to have to go back full speed in an environment where you may not want to jeopardize your cash flow. And so I think this is a really important time to really double down on making sure you're doing well and your company can function everywhere that it makes sense to manage and work from home.
Yeah, in the business world, it's a dollar for dollar, right? If you're able to make your office smaller or even close your office, imagine as we just said, like both the office, the infrastructure, utilities, it's an enormous amount of money. And imagine you can offset sales accept lower sales because your cost structure is lower. I mean, the benefits, being able to do it well are amazing. And so we are just imploring folks not to result back to, we just go back to the office, right? Because your boss thinks it's because you can't work from home. Well, not good. Hey, before we wrap, I want to, left out at the beginning of the show, want to thank I.Help for sponsoring the show. Appreciate it so much. If you are unaware, I.Help aggregates all of the stuff that you do online. So all your web conferencing, online scheduling, all of your, whatever links you have, social media, podcast, videos, whatever you have online, they'll aggregate, put it in one spot, let you share files, make calls, everything from one spot, $5 a month. I.Help, amazing platform, especially in this manage from home, work from home world. Encourage you to go get your I.Help account, $5 a month. Appreciate them sponsoring the show. Good. Listen, slow down a little bit. Enjoy the time of season. Everyone has typically a little softer view of the world right now. Appreciative, family time, holiday, gift giving. Enjoy that. Take it in, right? And sometimes we take for granted. Enjoy. We don't know what the next year holds for any of us. And enjoy being around your relatives, even if they get on your nerves a little bit. Find joy around being around people, outreach, and make somebody's day. Just encourage you to intentionally, during the next few days, reach out and be intentional about helping make someone's season a little brighter. Amen? Good? Amen. We will see you next Wednesday at noon. Until then.
Killing in the name of